Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Kneat and Acumen webinar on amplifying your Kneat Gx implementation with integration. Thank you again for joining our webinar today, and welcome back for anybody who's joined our previous webinars. We're happy to have you again. I'll just start out with this slide introducing some of the GoToWebinar controls for those who might be unfamiliar. During this meeting, the audience will be muted. You will not be able to unmute. If you have a question for our panelists at any time, you can use the questions module in your control panel to submit that question. We will have some time at the end to come back to any questions that are asked. If we don't have time for everything, we will be sure to follow up with you as best we can. This webinar is being recorded. The slides in the webinar will be available and more information on that will be sent out after the webinar, but that should be available within the week. If you have any follow-up questions for us, there's going to be contact information throughout, but from the Kneat side, you can always contact us at info@kneat.com. And of course, your feedback is always important to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the webinar today, how things went, and what you'd love to hear in the future from our Kneat webinars. So this is just a brief copyright disclaimer statement. All rights reserved for Kneat Solutions and for Acumen as well. And of course, again, welcome to Amplifying Your Kneat Gx implementation with integration. I'm joined today by George Brunner from Acumen and Sal Paparone from Kneat itself. I'll just do a few introductions and talk about our agenda before we get here into the webinar itself. So again, we'll start with a few introductions, an overview of GXP importance, data integration and validation in GXP applications. We'll do a few polls to see where the audience at large stands with integration and validation as a whole. We'll hear a couple use cases, pharma quality management and medical device manufacturing, as well as about sustainability, some best practices, and where we're going in the future. And again, like I mentioned, some time for Q&A at the end as time permits and with whatever questions we have from you, the audience. So before we jump into the webinar here, I do want to start us off with a brief poll, a poll that we always ask here at Kneat just to get a feel for where the audience is at. So this poll should be on your screen now. You'll be able to choose one of the options. What stage of your journey to digitization are you at? Is it starting today with this webinar? Have you had some initial discovery and you're doing some preparatory work and getting discussions done? Are you about to launch your first project? Do you have some projects being delivered digitally, considering how to scale? Or are you in the thick of it with multiple projects across sites being validated digitally? I'll give you just a few more seconds here, about 30 more seconds to submit your answers. We don't want to get hung up on these poll questions because we know you want to hear from our partners at Acumen about the content today. Looks like we're split between two of our choices, about 30% at initial discovery, with the other 70% multiple projects across sites. So a lot of folks here have multiple projects already running and being validated digitally. That's great to hear. You're in a great place. You're going to hear more about that digital validation as well as some future steps and maybe get some tips along the way that you might not have thought of yet. All right, so we're at a minute there for the poll, so I'm going to close it off. Thank you for those who have voted in it. We'll have some more polls along the way to get some more of your input, so stay tuned. So a little bit about Kneat before we jump in. If you don't know, Kneat is a publicly traded company listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We're held to high governance standards, and more importantly, we're continually growing. We have 280 plus employees. That plus is very important here, all across the globe. We are headquartered in Ireland, but have operations in France, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Canada, and the United States of America. Another important plus here, we have 80 plus customers in North America, Europe, and Asia. And of course, those numbers of employees and customers are always growing. 40,000 plus users in the Kneat software as a service platform, 150 plus global site deployments, and 40 plus certified global partners, much like Acumen. Again, always growing, so those pluses are very important. Another important thing to note, we do all of our in-house development. we do all of our development in-house. There is no outsourcing, and that is for quality reasons. We are ISO certified, 9001, 2015, and 27001 certified. 8 of the top 10 pharma companies in the world use Kneat for their digital validation. And why do they choose Kneat? Well, it comes down to simplicity. It is one platform for any work process. It eliminates 100% of paper validation, 100% of paper from the validation lifecycle. So all of the keeping track of paper, all of the storing of paper, all of finding the right paper that you need to validate is all gone. It is proven to reduce cycle times, proven to reduce skilled labor hours and validation costs. It's easy to train, it's easy to use, and it's easy to scale. And of course, you're audit ready at any time. So all of those validation processes that used to be on paper have now turned digital. They're all available in one platform through Kneat. And of course, that's not just what we say. We do have customer results and some independent customer benchmarking studies here that have shown reduced equipment time changeover by as much as 85%, reductions in validation lifecycle time by over 50%, reduced labor hours by cost by 50 to 65%, and about a little over $800,000 US saved in ERP deployment. All of these were found in independent customer and partner benchmarking studies. And overall, that leads to about 40% more efficient than our competitors in the digital validation space. And of course, what is Kneat? Kneat Gx is a software as a service validation lifecycle management platform that digitizes validation from end to end, enabling regulated companies to make validation easier, faster, and smarter. Of course, I'm breezing through a lot of this because I know we have a lot of people who come back to Kneat webinars to hear more from not only Kneat, but from our partners. And that's exactly what I want to get into today, is hearing from our partners at Acumen. So right now, I'd love to pass it over to George Brunner, who's joining us from Acumen to help give this webinar. Hello, George. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay, so this little slide that covers about Acumen. Acumen is a proud Kneat partner. We build future-forward technology solutions to create insights and optimize and accelerate digitization for GXP life sciences processes by leveraging data and artificial intelligence. The key points here are we're future-focused, where we use an agile methodology, and we deliver what we refer to as intelligent solutions. Next slide. So today we're going to talk about data integration and integration with digital validation to other GXP applications. It's very important, obviously, for GXP regulations to adhere to the GXP guidelines, to have consistent high-quality products, mitigate risks, meet regulatory requirements, and establish robust quality systems. Next slide. So when we talk about data integration with GXP applications, it combines and consolidates data from various sources. Integration does within this regulated. And we have GXP applications that generate and store vast amounts of data. We have data integration involving the extraction, the transformation, and the loading of data into a central repository, and so that data can flow from one application to another, but also to allow access to data in a combined fashion so that you can look at not data in a silo, for example, from one application or another, but you can see the data in context. Next slide. Okay, so digital validation in GXP apps. Again, there's data integration, combines the data. We have applications, it modernizes the validation process, replacing extensive documentation. And it includes defining requirements, automating tests, capturing the electronic data. This is everything that digital validation does. And it brings the benefits of digital validation, including increased efficiency, reduced timelines. And we talked about that earlier, and we'll talk a little bit of it again as the topic for the conversation is about amplifying the benefits that digital validation alone offers. Next slide. So let's talk about that combination. If you have digital validation and you combine the digital validation capabilities that was spoken about earlier, you now can integrate the data and be able to enhance and streamline your efforts, improve your efficiencies, support your decision making, and do this in a streamlined and compliant manner. Next slide. Okay, so the integration allows and ensures that you have data integrity, compliance, and quality. And so I'm going to cover each of these aspects of the data integration process. Next slide. So from a data integrity perspective, because they were integrating the data is flowing electronically. You increase your regulatory compliance. You increase your patient safety because you have accurate and reliable data. There's no human in the loop here that could make a mistake as they move data from one solution. And you also have quality assurance, data integrity supporting consistent manufacturing processes. You have your results flowing from one system to another. Next slide. And you have compliance. Compliance refers to adhering to the regulatory requirements and standards. So your regulatory expectation is that you'll be compliant with those GXP regs. Your product approvals will happen and ensure timely product launches. And your audit, you'll have the audit capability as well. And then ultimately, you'll also have risk mitigation, because with integration, you can actually connect into risk evaluations and pull them into your digital validation environment. Next slide. And then quality. Quality in GS is required. It enhances patient safety, product efficacy, customer satisfaction, and continuous improvement. One of the things that's important here is when you go through an integration project, that you put in place the ability for data to flow and go through these, as I mentioned, the extract and transform and loading processes that actually make your data more useful. And the great thing about this is that once the project's over, you continue to reap the benefits. Next slide. So now we'd like to do a poll to ask a few questions about integration with digital validation with other GXP apps. So the first one is, have you previously integrated applications? And the answers can be yes, successfully, yes, unsuccessfully, or no, not yet. We'll give you guys a few minutes to fill this out.
Thanks, George. Yeah, looks like we're 20 seconds in. We already have a lot of answers here. 73% have said no, not yet. And that's up to 75% now. 25% have said yes, yes, successfully. Wow. There's nobody who has said yes unsuccessfully yet.
Very good, very good. Okay, let's go to the next polling question.
All right.
So what is the main driver for your interest in integrating GXP with digital validation? And your options are streamlining validation to reduce timelines, enhancing the data integrity and accuracy, improving compliance and audit readiness, gaining real-time visibility into validation activities, increasing operational efficiency and productivity.
I will jump in to say if there is an other option, if one of these options doesn't fit for you, feel free to write it into the chat. Let us know, what your other option is here, what your other main driver is. I will say we have a vast majority increasing operational efficiency here. 60% have said increasing operational efficiency. 21% have said streamlining validation, and 13% have said enhancing data.
Awesome. Okay.
So a vast majority increasing operational efficiency.
Okay. And then the last poll question is, what are the key challenges you anticipate or have experienced when integrating with the digital validation? Now, I know this only applies to certain people, but for those that have, can you select the item that is most appropriate? Or all that apply, I'm sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people jumping in here immediately, and I will note you can select multiple if multiple apply to you. So we have a tie. Oh no! Right as I say that, it becomes not a tie, but three that are very close. The first one, 55% coordinating cross-functional teams, and then 50% both on handling validation and managing compatibility and technical issues. So. Those three share the majority of responses right now.
Okay.
Yep, managing compatibility and handling validation continue to be the two front runners. Coordinating cross-functional teams falling a little bit behind, but still those are our top three responses.
Okay. Very good. So let's go to the next slide. So now we looked at things from a high level perspective. Now we're going to talk about some of the challenges and complexities, the benefits, and then an overview of the process, the data collection and transformation and integration process. Next slide. So the integration process starts with data collection, identifying the data sources, quality management, manufacturing execution, LIMS, electronic document management, determining what data elements you want to integrate to flow from one application to the other. And I think worth mentioning here is that there's a number of different ways that you can do integrations. You can do one-way integration, so the data flows from one application to another. You can do two-way, where, for example, say you have a corrective action and a piece of equipment needs to be revalidated. You can have that information flow into the digital validation, but you can also have, when it's completed and fully executed, flow back into the original application that triggered the event. And so having that type of flow is a huge benefit. So the next step in the integration process is data mapping, analyzing the data structures, their sources, and okay. And then the next piece of it is data transformation, performing. So the transformation is the changes that happen to data as it flows from endpoint A to endpoint B. And then the next is the data integration itself, designing and developing the data integration framework and establishing the secure data transmission. Next slide. So after you've built the integration, the system, the integration needs to be validated and tested, and needs to stay in a validated state by monitoring and maintenance, and also putting the integration into a change control process. Next slide. So what are some of the challenges and complexity of integrating the systems? One is the regulatory compliance. When you implement, you need to make sure that you're following your standards, that you're documenting what needs to be, that is being built, and then it needs to be tested. So then you have to do the validation and qualification. And as I had mentioned, after all of that's done, the system, the integration of these applications needs to fall under change control. Next slide. and other aspects of it. You have to assess the risk. You have to ensure the data integrity. You need to make sure that when the data flows from point A to point B and then it gets processed, that there's a full audit trail. And then you have to train your users, and then you have to make sure that the components are monitored and managed. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm gonna pass the baton to Sal, where he's gonna give a deep dive on from a Kneat perspective.
Okay, thank you, George. Hi, everyone. My name is Sal Paparone, and I joined Kneat in August 2022 as an account manager. Prior to Kneat, I was a consultant in the life sciences space for just about 10 years, where I spent about 4.5 years as a validation engineer. And at that time, I wish I had Kneat, kind of did everything paper style. Then I transitioned into program management for system implementations in the life sciences space. Today, I'm going to cover some of the benefits in general, similar to George's overview of integration, a high look at Kneat's integration setup, and some of our live use cases. Next slide. So Kneat Gx as a product, through the industry integration standards, APIs, JSON, REST, Kneat is able to seamlessly move key business data across applications. Why? To automate activities for operational efficiency and application synchronization. Next slide. A few more benefits here that George had hit on that is worth reiterating is one is eliminating manual data entry or dual keying. We're going to have an example that we're going to go through in a bit more detail later on in this presentation. But not only does this save time, but it lowers risk, unnecessary risk. We automate business processes, ensuring compliance and synchronization with sources of truth or your golden sources, which all, of course, decrease our workload. Next slide. Some additional benefits, you take it one step further. And in the world that we're moving into with manufacturing 4.0 coming on the horizon, is enabling real-time data to our business and operational end users, so they can look at sensor data or other data in real time and make better and more informed decisions. And to facilitate innovation, linking devices and applications in new ways to create better workflows that create new efficiencies that didn't exist before, to decrease risk, to have stronger compliance, and to have higher operational efficiency. Next slide, please. Now for a high look in the next few slides, high level look at how our API integration works. So Kneat's API gateway typically connects through an integration layer to your business applications. So you'll see SAP, Jira, Viva, Azure DevOps. We'll cover a few of these later in the presentation, and we can even connect to some of your in-house custom applications. And one of the key pieces here is that the system administrator can set up APIs using Kneat's Gx configuration area. And we're going to show that on the next slide. So we'll do next slide there, James. Thanks. So this is a look at what it looks like for admins who are able to create APIs. They can manage their connectors through the front end open authorization form. Service accounts can be set up by admins. This allows for do-it-yourself integration functionality. This is self-service and secure, as open authorization is commonly used in the industry for web integrations. And the API key can be set to expire if you'd like, or not at all. All the API calls can be linked to the service account for security and for any audits. Next slide. A look at our integration product components. You have the Kneat Gx gateway, which is self-service, as we just showed. so that our end users and our admins can set up their own connections using API keys. The API reference with provided examples, which will serve as best practice for calling our APIs. One of those is the entity importer code that's provided that we're going to take a look at in more detail in a few slides, and is available for your reference. And for more complex integrations, we allow for subscription to the Kneat Gx events, the standardized events that are secure and robust. Next slide, please. In summary of the way that it works, at a high level, Kneat opens up key business functionality using APIs, which are self-served and allow for non-Kneat developers to create and manage integrations in-house. We can bring and open up all of the benefits for managing your users, for sharing documentation across business applications, and for import and export of data for any application. And for now, we're going to take a look, next slide, please, James, at some of our typical integration use cases. So you see here are just some examples, not limited to these systems, but ones that we have put in place. We have the integrations with some HR systems and single source sign-on applications for easier management for both onboarding and offboarding. We are able to integrate with ERP, in this case to SAP Plant Management and other CMMS systems for plant management use cases. We're going to take a bit of a deeper dive look at that particular use case later on in this presentation. We can connect to Viva quality management systems and master control and other document management systems for exchange of documentation and for overall process efficiency. I think George is going to go into more detail covering a little bit on master control. We can connect with Jira and Azure DevOps for development management, especially those using agile methodology for software validation. And using some of the scripts available in our APIs, you can create custom audit packs. That allows you to better manage the data and the information that is available to your governing body or supplier auditors. We're going to go into a few more use cases now in a bit more detail. Our next use case is the SAP feed, which is a work in progress, but halfway there with SAP Plant Management. So currently, we're able to pass information from SAP to Kneat for uploads of the entity and the attribute data. We're actually going to look at that in more detail here. And with version 9.1, we're going to be able to push back equipment status to SAP. So when we're able to push the information back to SAP, obviously ERP is going to allow for better resource and production planning as that feeds into the production planning module. It's going to allow for faster communication around all the different operations that support shop floor readiness. And for our entity import with those on 9.0 or moving to 9.0 here shortly, or we also call it our entity migrator, using a CSV file that you see up there in the top left, which is pre-formatted, and we'll share with folks that are using this functionality. Kneat can enable bulk import of files, drawings, equipment, anything that falls into our entity management. And it includes your folder structure. So the folder structure is going to come in as set up within the template. So this is a very good example of using Kneat APIs to build custom applications. In this example, we're importing drawings to work with our new drawing management functionality in 9.0. So using the CSV predefined format, it's imported through our API gateway using your API key. And here's a look at what it looks like as it's uploading and populating all the data. And then the outputs show up in your Kneat Gx front end. So you have your file structure and your folder structure as set up in the import file. You have the actual attribute data In this case, this is the drawing attribute data, and of course, the drawings themselves. And again, it's not limited to just drawings, just for any of the entity information that you want to pull in, and we can pull up to 1,000 entities at a time. Next slide, please. And in summary, Kneat has the above integration capabilities. QMS systems such as Viva, Azure DevOps for development management synergies, SAP plant management and other equipment management systems for easier management of equipment, HR systems for end user management, admin functionality for customer self-management of their own integrations, ServiceNow to manage IT service requests, sensor data for automating processes for better data entry, risk mitigation, and operational efficiency, and integration with CAD drawing systems as Kneat is rolling out their new drawing management module for those on 9.0 Plus. And that brings it to the end of my slides. Back over to you, George.
Okay, thanks, Sal. That was awesome. And I just wanted to point out that the enhancements in 9.0 really opened the door for more elaborate and more complex and useful integrations. Let's talk about some of those benefits. Streamlining the validation process. The API will allow the validation process to be much more efficient. Enhancing the data integrity. We talked about that before. If you don't have people keying or rekeying data, your data is going to be cleaner. Improve compliance, real-time visibility. So when you can do integration and have your data combined in either in each of the applications or in a central repository, your reporting becomes richer. Data analytics and insights. Again, when you pull your information together, you can then trend it and look at it from the perspective of the inputs and outputs. And the what's called the huge time and cost savings. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to cover two case studies. One is integrating digital validation Kneat with QMS in a pharma company. So the background is that the pharma company wanted to improve their processes, and what they did by integrating their quality management system, which included risk, stock management, corrective actions, change. They allowed it, they had manual process, they had compliance risk, they had limited visibility, and they had resource challenges and data integrity. Next slide. The solution that we came up with is the pharma implemented an integration of their QMS with a digital validation application to address the challenges. The digital validation application allowed for automated data capture, streamlined workflows, and real-time visibility into quality-related activities. The integration facilitated the following improvements: enhanced data integrity, streamlined workflows, automated workflows and tasks, real-time notifications and alerts, improved compliance, automated checks for the digital validation app, ensured adherence to the regulatory requirements. And the central storage of the compliance documentation automated the report generation and made things more efficient. And the real-time visibility, dashboards and reporting capabilities provided management with instant access to quality metrics, trends, and performance indicators, KPIs, enabling data-driven decision-making, and efficient documentation and reporting. Next slide. So the results of that integration, they observed significant improvements, a 30% reduction in the manual data entry and paperwork, freeing up employees. And this is on top of the benefits of digital validation already. 40% decrease in validation cycle times, 20% reduction in non-compliance, and 50% in real-time visibility into quality metrics, because the data is flowing automatically and there's no person needing to put together these dashboards. and a 25% increase in resource allocation, allowing people to focus on more quality improvement initiatives. Next slide. The second case study, again, is taking the MES system and integrating it with digital validation for a medical device company. They aim to improve their manufacturing processes in compliance with regulatory. They decided to integrate the two, MES with digital validation, and here's what the challenges were. Again, manual data entry from one system to another. Validation efficiency, the manual execution of validation protocols and test scripts was difficult. Compliance management, real-time visibility, and audit readiness were all challenges. Next slide. So what the solution was to integrate the MES with digital validation and address the challenges and integrate the facilitated improvements. Automated data capture. So the capture of the manufacturing data was process parameters, equipment status, batch records. They streamlined the validation execution. The automation of the protocols and the test scripts was flowing directly from MES into the validation, the digital validation, and all was electronic. Compliance documentation management, because of the validation reports were automated in the digital validation, all of that flowed seamlessly between the two systems. And then that real-time visibility and issue resolution, because the data was integrated, the reports could show trends with regard to deviations and allow them to be proactive. And then audit readiness and traceability, the comprehensive audit trails from both systems, and the automated generation of audit-ready documentation. Next slide, please. And the results. The medical device company observed significant improvements with their integration of MES with digital validation. 40% reduction in manual data entry, a 30% decrease in the validation cycle time, 25% improvement in compliance management, and again, that real-time visibility that with the data combined allowed them to be more proactive. Next slide. So another benefit of data integration is sustainability. By incorporating sustainability into these GXP integrations and validations, organizations can increase their overall sustainability goals. Reduce paper usage, as Sal had mentioned, 100%, I guess, 100% reduction of paper, more energy efficient, because we're using cloud computing, so less carbon, efficient resource utilization, and remote collaboration and reduced travel, and enhanced supply chain transparency, and then ultimately data-driven decision making. So all of these add to sustainability. Next slide. So I want to talk now about best practices with regard to data integration. And so we start off by defining the integration strategy. You start by understanding what the integration needs to be. What are your goals of your integration? Set those up at the front of the process. And also identify your GXP applications and what's involved and how that information is going to, or what components are involved. Next step is conduct a risk assessment. So we understand and perform that risk assessment to make sure your challenges are addressed and your risks are mitigated. Next is to ensure regulatory compliance. When you do all your documentation, your validation documentation of the integration, make sure you list out all the regs that come into play. Then establish your data mapping and transformation. As I said, when you do an integration, it's not just copying from point A to point B. There may be some transformation, calculations, lookups of data so that the information is categorized. So you do that establish the data mapping and the transformation, you document all that, and then you build. Next slide, please. Okay. Another aspect, when the integration is being built, you need to make sure that it's on a robust data platform, that the information is access controlled, that the data is securely transformed, very often in an encrypted manner, and that flow of data is monitored. I mentioned before, you can't just drop an integration in, it must be validated. You need to perform comprehensive validation activities to ensure the integrity and reliability. You need to develop validation plans and protocols and execute them, and conduct through and test the integration to make sure that things work as they were designed. And then after the validation is complete and it's moved into production, the integration must stay in a change-controlled environment. Any changes to either the endpoints that involve the integration or the integration itself need to be controlled within change control procedures. And then training and support, ongoing understanding so that people understand the integrations, the interfaces, the processes, and workflows. Next slide. And now let's talk about the future. The future of integration offers exciting possibilities with emerging technologies such as generative AI. These technologies can revolutionize these processes. Life sciences companies can achieve greater efficiencies. So things like artificial intelligence to automate complex data mappings and enhance quality assessments, anomaly detection, data cleansing. Blockchain to ensure secure and immutable data as the data flows from point A to point B and is exchanged with partners and suppliers. Quantum computing will revolutionize the complex data analysis with simulations and offer faster, more accurate results and optimize validation processes. And big data analytics, extracting insights from large and complex data sets, improving the decision-making process. Next slide. And generative AI, everyone's talking about ChatGPT, but generative AI can come into place in the integration process. You can augment existing data sets. You can aid in anomaly detection. You can optimize complex processes by modeling and simulating scenarios, and you can fill in or missing or incomplete data. Internet of Things, we talked about sensors and information from the manufacturing floor and from the labs. And then robotic process automation, which allows the automation of repetitive tasks and streamlining the data and reducing human error. And then augmented reality and virtual reality happening on the shop floor and integrating those. All of these future opportunities have APIs themselves. So the great news is if you have an API that's available for the new technologies and the API that's now available in Kneat, these systems can now talk to each other. And so again, opening the door for a lot of opportunities for improvement and leveraging of these technologies. Next slide. Okay. So I think at this point in time, we're going to open up to Q&A.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much, George. And I'll welcome back Sal in as well with George here. And we do have some questions that have been asked by the audience. I will also encourage the rest of the audience, if you have any more questions that you haven't asked, or you want to, sorry, didn't mean to go to that slide yet. If you have any more questions, feel free to put them in now. We have a few more minutes for questions here at the end of the webinar. Sal, it looks like you have seen this one already, and I know you touched on SAP, but any more information to share if Kneat has been successfully integrated with SAP? Anything else you want to touch on that?
Yeah, the one live integration that we have is with SAP Plant Management. So we did hit on that, and it's currently halfway through to its end state, where we're using SAP as a source of master data to populate the entities module within Kneat and synchronize the master data. All the attribute data is there, visible, organized in the same structure that it comes across from SAP. Later, as we had mentioned in 9.1, we're going to push that data back to SAP so that when engineers are calibrating equipment, they can update in the system that they use and validate in Kneat. At the closure of that project, it sends a signal back to SAP to say, yes, this equipment is now available. So that links back up into the production planning module and the resource planning to allow for more accurate production scheduling.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you so much for touching on that again. The next question we have here is submitted by one of our audience members. Is there a list of systems, programs, or software that is known to have the capability of successful integration that can be shared with this audience?
Well, we put a list at the end of the needs capability slide, but it's certainly not limited to that. I think, George, you can speak to, you know, the.
So as I mentioned earlier, the Kneat API is a REST API, and it allows the communication with any other REST API application. And so I mentioned at the end of future opportunities. All of the applications that I had talked about all have a REST API, and they may be at different points in where they are. So the quick answer is any other application with a REST API can integrate. The question is how elaborate, how complete that REST API is. And so I don't know if I answered the question, but the answer is any other application with a REST API, but it depends on what you're trying to accomplish to go through that REST API.
Excellent. I think that's a great answer, George. Thank you. And of course, I'll always point people to our information email inbox, info@kneat.com, for more clarification, detailed information, or specific use cases. All right, next question up here from a returning name I've seen at a few different webinars. Which version of Kneat has integration keys? Sal?
Sure. Yeah, 8.9 is where our APIs begin. Those for one-way push or pull integrations. In 9.0 and 9.1 is when we begin to send information in both directions. So if you're
Excellent.
not, I'm not sure which company that came from, but we can certainly take a follow-up action to see where they're at, and start working with our customer success managers, get them scheduled to come up to the newest version.
Certainly. And another question that might be similar to our last one, are there APIs for EMS or CMMS systems? I'm not familiar with those acronyms, but do you guys understand that?
Yeah. For the CMMS systems, we don't have anything live yet, but we can certainly, and we look at that as a use case that makes a lot of sense. As a lot of our customers are managing equipment in Kneat, and they also have their CMMS systems to manage their calibration needs for all their equipment across their sites. That's kind of low-hanging fruit for folks that want to integrate that and develop some workflows, whether it be bookends on both sides, straight documentation, or if they want to put some functionality in there, as George kind of hit at, that we can be more than just pass information. We can calculate, we can convert, and we can add some math in there to add additional functionality. So where that question came from, we'd love to learn afterwards, George and James, and chase that one down a bit more.
Sure.
Certainly. Yeah, we can definitely follow up, and we can always ask that companies follow up with their CSMs or account managers as well. One more question we have in here, kind of a two-parter. What kind of GXP applications can be integrated? And does all of this keep the human in the loop?
Okay. I can take that.
Yeah, George, please.
Yeah, sure. So any GXP application with an API interface or a shared data source. And what I mean by that is if the application doesn't have an API, but there's the ability for data to flow from that application to a central repository, then that information, if you can connect, for example, if it's a SQL database, for example, then even if it doesn't have an API, if the data can flow out of the other system, then you can connect into it. So that's one aspect of it, is just and the other question with regard to human in the loop. So when an API is built, again, we have a flow of data. So we have a flow of data. You want the information to go into the target application, but you want to make sure that there's a human in the loop. And what that means is that, for example, say a document has been created and it's in a draft mode. You can have the API update different sections of the document, but you don't want that document to be automatically reviewed or automatically approved. You want a human in the loop to make sure that the data is being reviewed properly, that there's a full audit trail. And so that's something we always insist upon, that yes, we can build integrations and they can flow information, but there needs to be a person receiving the data on the other side so that it can be reviewed and approved.
Excellent, great answer, George. Thank you. Yeah, that human approval at the end is always important. Another question we have coming in from the audience: how do you determine the scope of testing an existing validated application after it has been integrated with Kneat?
I would say that the common answer there is to do a risk assessment and evaluate what has been affected by the scope of changes that are written into the functionality that you're bringing into place, what data is going to be touched. And then, based on the results of your risk assessment, you would produce an appropriate set of testing. Anything to add to that, George?
No, I agree completely. A risk assessment and what's sometimes referred to as regression analysis, it gets back to what you were saying, Sal. What data elements were touched, but also maybe what functionality might be impacted.
Yeah, and in just commenting on regression there, so anything that you might have changed or need to retest as a result of modifying it, that's certainly in scope.
Excellent. Some great answers here. We have reached a little bit of a lull in the questions, so as I do a last call for questions from the audience, I will touch briefly on a slide that I accidentally showed earlier. Kneat is hosting its third Validate conference, taking place in Miami, Florida on October 4th to the 5th. This two-day event is filled with sessions covering the latest in digital validation with a focus on digitization and change, and has many networking opportunities to connect with your peers. Tickets are on sale now at validateconference.com. For any Kneat customers, any current Kneat customers, please reach out to your CSM or your account manager for a special discount code that saves you $200 off the price. We can't wait to see you there, and you'll hear more information about that in our subsequent Kneat webinars leading up to that conference. But just a quick break from our Q&A to make sure I mention that. I don't have any additional questions that have shown up just yet, but we're dealing with the last couple minutes here. Any additional points, George or Sal, that you guys want to add before we wrap up here? George, anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Perfect. I think your presentation was thorough, well thought out, and I think you covered a lot there. So I definitely don't blame you. Sal, any parting wisdom or any last words you want to put in before we end it out?
Yeah, as an account manager here, part of my job is working with customers to build out these use cases. So reach out to us or your Kneat account manager, your customer success manager, and let us know the integration use cases you want to build. Working with Acumen and our partners, we're going to go ahead and scope this out and build these integrations. And the more stories we build, the more integrated we are, the more powerful the entire efficiency story of moving to digital becomes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sal. That's a great point and some great final wisdom there. I do have one last question. We bought some time for one last question to come in. Is Kneat offering special training to cover integration functionalities?
That's a great question. I guess it would depend on the use case. As of right now, our cookie cutter end user module certainly doesn't cover integrations, as they would all be custom and specific to the customer and the use case. But you know, our support team, the account managers, and the CSMs will certainly help you build out the appropriate SOPs and training for that.
Sorry, George, I don't think we quite got you there.
Point out that Acumen's been working closely with the Kneat developers, and so we have an extreme broad knowledge base with regard to integration. So if folks want to reach out to us directly to Acumen, that's another option as well.
Excellent, perfect. Thank you so much for that, George. And yeah, it's the partnerships and the relationships we have with our partners are super valuable, and they only add to Kneat and Kneat Gx as a platform. So with that, I will end out our webinar. I think we've gotten through all the questions that we have. We have 2 minutes left, but I do want to thank George Brunner and all of our colleagues and partners over at Acumen for joining us today, and of course Sal Paparone from Kneat. Thank you both for joining me, and a big thank you to everyone who stuck it out for the bulk of this conference. Here's some, bulk of this webinar. Here's some last minute contact information for Kneat. Again, any questions, anything you want to get more specific answers on, feel free to reach out to info@kneat.com. And of course, Kneat.com, where this webinar video on demand will be posted, so you can go back and hear some of George and Sal's great insights again. That'll be posted again by the end of the week, and you will get an email following up thanking you for joining us and giving more information on that. So again, from Kneat, thank you so much for joining our webinar. Have a great week.